And welcome to Weather Geeks. I am Dr. Marshall Shepard from the University of Georgia, and I have two guests with me today. And even though it's the summer, waning summer, we're going to talk about some cold weather, climate. I mean, there's Farmer's Almanac reports coming out talking about cold winters. John Martin, a professor at the University of Wisconsin, Atmospheric Sciences, Oceanic Sciences. Dr. Greg Postel as well. He is actually the storm specialist here and also the host of AMHQ Weekend. Yep. Thank you guys both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Now, this is going to be totally counterintuitive to Weather Geeks viewers, but you've been doing research suggesting that the amount of cold air, the so-called cold pool up over the Arctic, is shrinking.
It's shrinking.
Now, people are saying, wait a minute, it's been cold the last couple of winters. How is that possible?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's shrinking over I'm looking at it from the whole hemisphere perspective, Marshall. And it's very simple to do. One just traces one of the temperature lines at about a mile above the ground. We take observations every day around the hemisphere. It's easy to do this. We have a 66-year record of that observation set.
Sure.
And go all the way back, and I can figure out the area that's enclosed by the -5-degree isotherm.
And it suggests that it's shrinking.
And it's getting smaller, yeah.
Really?
Systematically so.
Is winter going away? I mean, what does that mean?
No, we have nothing to fear. And in fact, it's really interesting that the last two winters in North America have been, especially the two winters ago, notably cold. Everybody complained about how cold it was. And yet, the last two winters have had the smallest average area of the cold pool in the Northern Hemisphere in the 66-year time series.
Wow, I think
so locally cold, hemispherically warmer than ever.
I think, and Greg, you've been on before talking about the polar vortex.
Yeah, I call this one the poor man's polar vortex.
Is this the polar vortex or something else? Okay.
Essentially it is. I mean, it's the size of the cold pool, right, whose outer edge is effectively the jet stream at the upper troposphere. And, you know, his results, which are now published in the
Journal of Climate.
Suggest
one of the top journals in the world.
There's no way to getting around it. It is getting smaller, but as you accurately pointed out, and we need to keep this in mind, it doesn't mean winter's over because there's still some pretty significant intrusions of that polar vortex or that lobe of cold air from the poles into mid-latitudes.
But what are the implications of Professor Martin's research, though, from the standpoint, we sort of scientifically it's interesting, but are there broader implications that we can talk about with this research?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that fits in with the whole narrative that we've been dealing with now for so long, and this is pretty much, as you say, just a way to look at it that convinces even the most ardent skeptics.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity over the past year especially to go and talk to civic groups around town in Madison in the vicinity, southern Wisconsin, and all of the groups have warned me there's going to be a few skeptics about whether the Earth is warming and whether human beings have anything to do with it.
Now, I want to get into a little of that when we come back from the break.
Okay.
I mean, because Twitter's going to light up when we start talking about that. But I want to get back a little bit to sort of what kind of took you down this road?
Oh, this is a really interesting story. A couple of winters ago, 2011, 2012. I grew up in Massachusetts, I ought to tell you that.
Sure.
And so I love snowstorms, always have as a kid. It's my favorite time of the year. 2011 and 12 in the Great Lakes states was wet, warm, boring. And I remember thinking to myself, hearing reports about Alaska being exceptionally cold, northwestern Europe being exceptionally cold, I said, I got to get rid of this parochial view that I have about the winter and measure the severity in a different way. So I thought, let's look at how much area there is in the -5-degree isotherm at 850 millibars, just for the fun of it. But it occurred to me as soon as I did it a couple of days, one could get a trend out of this. You could look at it, how has it changed over the last 66 years? And son of a gun, it's systematically shrinking.
Wow. Now, Greg, I mean, again, talking about polar vortex and poor man's polar vortex, are these same dynamics at play in the southern hemisphere as well, or is this exclusively sort of a northern hemisphere?
Well, John, you'd have to say that. I mean, is it happening in the southern hemisphere? I haven't done the research.
Yeah, so let's talk.
Yes, it is.
There's that would make sense that it is, and you know we're still going to see that outer edge of it is capable of producing significant winter storms, regardless. So I want to make sure we get that point across.
That's a great point, Greg.
That's very true. And in fact, in the southern hemisphere case, since the continent sits right on the South Pole, it's a really tight little vortex that sits over the South Pole during their wintertime. So a little bit of shrinking there actually does make a big difference in latitudes that are affected by storms in the wintertime.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that in terms of continentality, sort of the presence of certainly much larger landmass in the northern hemisphere. What are the implications there? So it certainly does matter.
It does matter. The anchor points for the cold air in the wintertime are Siberia and northern United States and Canada. There's no doubt about that. However, we did look in this research, we looked at whether or not increased or decreased snow cover made a difference for the size of the cold pool. And there's no systematic relationship between overland snow cover and the size of the cold pool over this 66-year time series.
Now, we were talking before the show or before the taping, and you were saying that and you and Greg were talking about this, and I kind of peeked in on the discussion. You were saying that extreme cold events in general, kind of getting back to sort of, you were saying that since you came to Wisconsin, you haven't seen extreme cold
There's
events?
not been a single one.
And Greg, what did you ask him?
I couldn't believe it when he said that, because it's just something that we've been experiencing cold winters now for how many in a row in eastern North America.
Right.
But to hear this blew my mind.
So what do you mean by, I think you need to, because some people are out there now, wait a minute, what is he talking about? What do you mean by extreme cold events, and you haven't experienced one since you've been there?
Yeah, a reasonable question. So again, it's a hemispheric perspective that I'm taking in this analysis. So for every single calendar day, December 1st to February 28th, over the last 66 years, you can take the area, the average area for each of those days, for each December 1st, let's say, get a 66-year average, and then rank every one of those December 1st above or below that average.
Right.
If you're 2 standard deviations above the average areal extent of the cold pool, I consider that an extreme cold day.
Right.
And there have been not a single one of those has occurred since January 1994 in the Northern Hemisphere.
Wow.
And in that same amount of time, looking at it the opposite way, extreme warm events are days in which the area is 2 standard deviations smaller than that long-term average for a calendar day.
Right.
There's been 141 of those. So the score has been 141 to nothing.
Wow, that's
warm
kind
events versus cold ones.
That's kind of a shellacking. That kind of looks like that Wisconsin football. You got 2 Wisconsin guys here.
You got that right.
They're spanking people. But quickly, Greg, as we're talking about this, how do we get these measurements? I mean,
well, these are done from the global analyses, the reanalysis project. So we have data that goes back over time, going back decades, really, essentially. And, you know, there are errors associated with that, but that's all part of the calculus when you go ahead and make these kind of research statements about what's happening. So, I mean, and John, you can attest to this, but this is pretty much a foolproof way of looking at it with a stable and consistent set of data.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
I consider it's absolutely foolproof because of what you're saying. There are going to be a few errors in measurement and so on.
Let me get you to pick up on that thought after the break.
Okay.
And we're going to get into this. Is climate change linked to this? Is this smoking gun? But next, our Geek of the Week.
Jacob Wyckoff, meteorologist for WeatherBug and TV meteorologist for Western Mass News in Springfield, Massachusetts, is this week's Geek of the Week. Jacob loves tropical meteorology and has been in 3 hurricanes, including Earl, Irene, and Isaac. He is a big fan of the quasi-geostrophic potential vorticity equation and loves the way mesoscale convective vortex just rolls right off the tongue. Congratulations to Jacob Wyckoff, our Geek of the Week.
When your cold is pain and fever, cough, and nasal congestion.
Okay, guys, it's getting late. You gotta hit the road.
You need the power of Theraflu. Millions of people count on the Weather Channel. That's why the Weather Channel counts on Theraflu products. Available in both day and now nighttime formulas.
Good morning, guys. Let's get the live shot set up.
Theraflu, the power to feel better.
It's been an amazing year for Honda, with the all-new HR-V crossover, all-new Pilot, and the all-new Civic. There's a lot to celebrate, so hurry in to Happy Honda Days and take home KBB.com's best overall brand.
Mondays on the Weather Channel. When nature is this dangerous, only one question matters. Oh my God! So you think you'd survive? All new Mondays at 10, only on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 80 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Today, sunshine and clouds mixed. High 79. Winds northeast at 15 to 25 miles per hour. Tonight, showers later at night. Low 71. Chance of rain 40%. Monday, intervals of clouds and sunshine. High 81. Winds east at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Mondays on the Weather Channel. When nature is this dangerous, only one question matters. So you think you'd survive? All new Mondays at 10, only on the Weather Channel.
With Crizal No Glare lenses, neither scratch, nor smudge, nor glare of night can keep you from the clearest vision possible. Plus, Crizal gives you the most comprehensive UV protection. Crizal No Glare lenses. Live life in the clear.
How do you do Black Friday? Do you camp out or caffeine up? Stick to a list or let the savings speak to you? Click from the couch or grab from the shelves? Brave it alone or bring reinforcements? However you build cheer, the best prices of the year are still here. Let's do this. Save over $800 on the Samsung refrigerator. The Home Depot. More saving, more doing.
Need new tires? Right now at Pep Boys, when you get 3 Falcon, Cooper, or Hankook tires, you get the 4th tire free instantly. Plus, get no interest and paid in full within 12 months on your Pep Boys credit card. Trust the boys to get you there.
Think your heartburn pill works fast? Take the Zantac It Challenge. Zantac works in as little as 30 minutes. Nexium can take 24 hours. When heartburn strikes, take Zantac for faster relief than Nexium or your money back. Take the Zantac It Challenge.
And we are back on Weather Geeks with Dr. John Martin and Dr. Greg Postel, and we're talking about some really interesting, this is, I think, one of our geekier topics. This is a prototype for what the show is meant for. It's perfect. Now, we've been talking about the shrinking cold pool. Now, you think that this might be an effective way to convince those skeptics or naysayers that suggest that our climate is not warming and that there's perhaps no sort of anthropogenic signal. Look, I know Weather Geeks viewers, we've got people out there that have different views on this. We want to discuss them all on Weather Geeks. Now, give us your perspective on that.
Yeah, my perspective is based a little bit on experience. But first, my perspective is this is pretty strong evidence. It's in line with a lot of other pieces, and it's a relatively new piece of evidence. So that's what you like to do when you're trying to construct an argument. Find a new piece of evidence that really doesn't have a direct relationship to other ones that says the same thing.
Right.
So this does.
Yeah, I use the term consilience, and you would kind of arrive at different viewpoints in different ways. So, but the point that I think really that I heard you say is that, look, this is not just thermometers in your backyard or in the National Historical Climate Network.
That's right.
This is a new perspective that gets at a problem of change. Talk to that.
It's definitely true. No one's really used observations of the atmosphere temperature above the surface for these kinds of climate studies until now. I find that surprising. It's not exactly where I started my research career, but when I found myself in this problem, that turned out to be one of the interesting facts about it, is that no one's used upper air data to make these statements. And this is the first study that's done it.
Yeah.
And it's exactly in line with everything else that's been done with the surface record, but it's not as contaminated as people sometimes suggest the surface record is. You know, you've had to move a thermometer from one airport location to a city location and so on. It's not the case with this data.
Yeah, that's a great one. But Greg, picking up on that, what do you do when someone says, well, why was it so cold the last couple of winters in the east, for example?
Well, you got the squeeze play, right? I mean, forget the fact that it's shrinking, but you're still going to get little fingers and filaments of this very cold air mass, this cold pool, the poor man's polar vortex. Yeah, it's going to come down and scour you out.
When you start seeing that on social media, here it is, Greg Postel.
It's the one you feel.
Yeah, it's the
one
you feel.
You're still going to get these lobes that come down and give you harsh winters in various longitude sectors and at various times. So even though, say, envision it like a toothpaste. You're squeezing some toothpaste that's going to find its fingers away from where you're squeezing it, but it's going to get out and it's going to find its way and make bad winters for people all around the world.
What does this mean for the strength of winter storms? Are there any implications there? Either one of you can take that.
I think that it doesn't have any direct relationship, I don't think, to the strength of winter storms, but the location of them, we may be seeing some new circulation anomalies that seem to be more recurrent than others have been in the past, and it might mean that the location of some of the storms, storm tracks themselves may be altered a little bit, and in fact some of the cold pool, the size in areas where it's getting smaller and being pushed toward the pole might actually testify to a change in the storm tracks.
Yeah,
Greg, you want to add to that?
I do. We think we're seeing some of those areas over the North Atlantic and the typical blocking areas in the North Pacific where these large giant anticyclones aloft are beginning to now sort of anchor themselves in places for longer periods of time and for larger areas than they have been in the past. So as you say, those are the areas where it's getting kind of knocked off its edge a little bit, knocked off its anchor, the polar vortex is, and as a consequence, right, it finds its way southward in various other longitude sectors.
We don't have a lot of time. Great point. But is this related at all to the work that Jennifer Francis and Vavris and others have talked about with Arctic amplification? Any links there?
Well, I'm working with them now on a new project that has to do with waviness in the flow, and we haven't been able to find much connection between the 850 temperature time series and waviness that we've developed a new measure.
850 millibars for those weather geeks.
Yeah, about a mile above the ground.
Yep.
So we haven't been able to develop that connection yet. So it may be there, it may not be. We might need a longer time series.
Okay. So when we come back, we're going to geek out on heavy snowfall. If Jim Cantore, Greg Postel said this, if Cantore wants to see thunder snow, where does he need to go in that storm system? We'll tell you next on Weather Geeks.
You ready? Some call it giving back.
Oh, come on.
We call it Share the Love. During our Share the Love event, get a new Subaru and we'll donate $250 to those in need, bringing our total donations to over $65 million. And bringing love where it's needed most. Love. It's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
What's this? A box. It takes worn out things and makes them better.
It's our biggest breakthrough yet. We're taking worn out batteries and making them into something strong. Energizer Eco Advanced, world's first long-lasting battery made with 4% recycled batteries.
Beat the rush during our Black Friday event. Now through December 1st, select suits are $149.99. All ties are $19.99. Merino wool sweaters are $39.99. Designer jeans, $49.99. Plus buy one, get one free on even more. Celebrate the holidays with Men's Warehouse.
You can't always protect her. Make sure her tires will. The Michelin Premier Tire with Evergrip technology. Even when half worn, it's still safe. Safe when new, safe when worn.
Before there could be a nation, there had to be people willing to fight for it. To take on the world's greatest challenges, whatever they might be. So the U.S. Army masters not only tactics and strategy, but also physics and chemistry. We make battle plans and create breakthroughs in medicine, science, and engineering. Our next mission could be anything, so we prepare for everything.
We know you have a morning routine. We have one too. 7 days a week, AMHQ is right here and weather ready.
A lot of people traveling, but we'll keep an eye on it for you.
So include us in your routine.
Let's get right to what you want, and that is the weather.
AMHQ, every morning starting at...
Life's busy, but you can stay connected to family and friends with Xfinity Voice. Create up to 4 additional phone numbers to enjoy unlimited nationwide talk and text, anywhere you go. Plus, with features like readable voicemail and caller ID across your smartphone, tablet, even TV, you'll never miss an important message. Life's busy, and the old phone company can't keep up. So switch and save with Xfinity Voice. Just $19.99 a month for 12 months. Call or go online today.
This Black Friday weekend only, for 96 hours only, 96 new Kias must be sold. No reasonable offer will be refused. Get to the 96-hour Black Friday sale at Best Smith Kia. Now, drive a new Optima for $0 down and $249 a month. New Sorrentos, $0 down, $299 a month. Plus, every new Best Smith Kia comes with free tires and batteries for life. 96 new Kias must be sold. Rush to the 96-hour Black Friday sale at Best Smith Kia. Save you the most on the Treasure Coast.
Order now.
Here we go.
It's our biggest December ever, starting with season premieres of Prospectors at 9 and Highway Through Hell at 10.
Bam!
Next Sunday on the Weather Channel.
We know you have a morning routine. We have one too. 7 days a week, AMHQ is right here and weather ready.
Where's the rain that's happening right now as you walk out the door?
A lot of people traveling, but we'll keep an eye on it for you.
Because the weather impacts your day in 100 ways you see and 1,000 ways you don't.
I want to make sure everybody can get an idea of what's happening here.
So include us in your routine.
Let's get right to what you want, and that is the weather.
AMHQ, every morning starting at 5 on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 80 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Today, partly cloudy. High 80. Winds northeast at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Tonight, partly cloudy skies this evening will give way to occasional showers overnight. Low 71. Chance of rain 40%. Monday, sunshine and clouds mixed. High 81. Winds east at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
It is Geek Out time, one of our favorite segments here on the show. Where do you go to find that biggest snow, that thunder snow, those biggest snow bands, if we're talking about a typical snowstorm? John, where do you go?
Typical snowstorm. The storm is on the surface of the planet for about 3 or 5 days. Yeah. Near the end of that life cycle, you find yourself in the northwest quadrant, the so-called occluded quadrant of the storm. That's where you go, northwest of the low pressure center, and you try and stay there because that's where it's going to snow like crazy.
Yeah, okay. Now, you know, I've heard this term, and we're seeing some
It ain't
images.
wraparound precip.
Well, I was going to say,
it is not. I hate that. That's
Greg,
one of
what's
my
that wheel? Pet peeve.
Pet peeve in here.
Not wraparound. Yeah, I've heard you talk. Tell us about that.
There is forcing for ascent in that occluded quadrant.
You
and you are the leading expert in the world about this because this sector of the cyclone, right, is really governed by vorticity dynamics, very little frontogenesis, and some of those that forcing of the ascent associated with the vorticity advection is related to the, well, we can talk about it, right? Deformation as well is some part of it.
Really geeking out.
Is some part of it, but we think perhaps maybe not the only part.
No,
that's right. That's safe to say. The trowel it's an abbreviation the Canadians came up with. It means trough of warm air aloft.
Yeah, tell us about it.
So when the cold and the warm fronts of a cyclone in its premature stage are kind of encroaching upon one another, once the cold front approaches or actually overtakes the warm front, it lifts what used to be surface warm air up into the middle troposphere. Canadians identified this in the 1940s and 50s. I don't know how they did it. It wasn't very good observations then, but they called it the trough of warm air aloft. It's the essential structural characteristic of occluded storms. And it's really the three-dimensional intersection of the cold and the warm fronts. And you can see it vividly in numerical model output today with the tools we have. So maybe in the 1940s and 50s it was a little bit of a stretch to say that it was there. It's not a stretch now. It's right there and you can't miss it.
You can't. I mean, what's happening is the air is wrapping around the cyclone and ascending the entire way on the backside of the northwestern.
Where's that air coming from? Warm sector over the Gulf of Mexico in the central U.S.
coming up on the backside in the cold area of these cyclones, and you can get thunder snow, you can develop instabilities on various scales, and you have, I think, the most dangerous weather of all in the wintertime cyclone is in that area.
In that area, right. So that's good to know, and keep that in mind as we get into the winter. Now, John, I was kind of browsing around on some of your background, and on your website, there's a term that I just want to throw out there for the weather geeks. You mentioned an interest in cyclolysis.
Oh, yes.
I just like saying the words. I had to work it in. Tell us about cyclolysis.
Well, where do these cyclones go?
Yeah.
You know, they live for 3 to 5 days, and surprisingly, the question about how do they die was completely
because everyone
left
knows
alone.
about cyclogenesis.
Right, and because it's a little bit more sexy because it ends up delivering to you some substantial weather.
Sure.
Cyclolysis is an interesting scientific problem, perhaps more than it is an interesting operational problem, but still, where do these cyclones go? And so that was an interesting problem to me, and then it turns out it's more interesting than you bargained for. You find out that there's energy that's released by these storms in a variety of different ways that has an impact on the downstream flow and all kinds of really interesting interactions that a dying cyclone can have with its environment.
Okay, I'm going to put both of you on the spot here real quickly. In terms of biggest snowstorms or storms that you remember from a snow perspective, Greg, anything that just jumps out at you recently or in the past, big snow producers?
Blizzard of 78. I grew up in New Jersey. We didn't get it nearly as bad as Boston. That's one of them, and there's a couple of others that on the East Coast delivered incredible amounts of snow, unlike anything I've ever seen since I left the East Coast when I was a teenager.
What about you, Professor?
Yeah, I wouldn't be sitting here if it weren't for the blizzard in 1978.
Oh,
that was
really?
that was the one. I was was about 14, I was thinking about a couple of different types of things to think about for a career, and I've always been interested in the weather, and that was
You were thinking about QSBS convergence, weren't you?
And I wasn't until many years later. But so that was it for me. And then January 19th, 95 and April 1st, 1997. Those two got me tenure because of what we're talking about.
That's how it's done. It seems like for so many of us meteorologists, it's a big storm in our past, an event, and all of a sudden we're hooked.
Exactly. And that's where we have to end it, guys. I really enjoyed this. And remember, if you want to join us, you can follow us along on Twitter at WX Geeks TWC. And we also have a Facebook page. Join us again next week on Weather Geeks.
If my hands are dried and cracked, I can't do my job efficiently.
My hands are dry from washing my hands lots of times a day.
O'Keefe's Working Hands. Guaranteed relief for dry, cracked hands.
O'Keefe's works.
I saw it working for my husband, and I knew I had to try it.
Learn more at o'keefescompany.com.
O'Keefe's. Guaranteed relief for extremely dry, cracked hands and feet.
This is Bob. Bob's on a first date, so he's not thinking about where to buy his next set of tires. But if he were, all he'd need to know is TireRack.com. He could view the complete selection of Continental tires at TireRack.com. Then he'd have the confidence to drive safely in any weather. But Bob's not thinking about tires. Bob's thinking, should I tell her about that thing in her teeth? TireRack.com. Find, deliver, install.
It's the perfect time to get the gift you've waited for all year. The redesigned Honda Accord, complete with a new look, improved fuel efficiency, and Pandora compatibility standard. Hurry into the Happy Honda Day sales event where you can get a great deal on the Accord, the most durable, longest-lasting car in its class. Now at your Honda dealer.
Every step, every stride, every start. Begin strong with the lasting energy of 100% whole grain Quaker oats. And off you go.
These hands are made to work, so I can't waste time with stripped and rusted fasteners. That's why I love the Craftsman Extreme Grip line. Screwdrivers with diamond-coated tips deliver 4 times more grip than standard ones. And sockets that fit snug on rounded bolts for 14 times more gripping power to keep me moving. Craftsman hand tools are protected by a lifetime full warranty. This holiday, put Craftsman at the top of your wish list.
I found a better deal on prescriptions.
We found lower copays.
And a free wellness visit. New plan, same doctor. I'm happy.
It's Medicare open enrollment. Have you compared plans yet?
It's easy at Medicare.gov.
Or you can call 1-800-MEDICARE.
Medicare open enrollment. You'll never know unless you go.
I did it. You can too.
From the gifts they want to the ones they really want. From big gifts that mean a lot to little ones that mean everything. Get the perfect gift for everyone and share wonder on Christmas Day. Walmart.
What's this? A box. It takes worn out things and makes them better.
It's our biggest breakthrough yet. We're taking worn-out batteries and making them into something strong. Energizer Eco Advanced, world's first long-lasting battery made with 4% recycled batteries.
We know you have a morning routine. We have one too. 7 days a week, AMHQ is right here and weather ready.
Where's the rain that's happening right now as you walk out the door?
A lot of people traveling, but we'll keep an eye on it for you.
Because the weather impacts your day in 100 ways you see and 1,000 ways you don't.
I want to make sure everybody can get an idea of what's happening here.
So include us in your routine.
Let's get right to what you want, and that is the weather.
AMHQ, every morning starting at 5 on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 80 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Today, partly cloudy, high 80, winds northeast at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Tonight, partly cloudy skies this evening will give way to occasional showers overnight. Low 71, chance of rain 40%. Monday, sunshine and clouds mixed, high 81, winds east at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
I was a child when we started to California, yet I remember the journey well. Could we have looked into the future and seen the misery before us? These lines would never have been written.
There's no other choice. We had to save ourselves. Lord help us.
Dead of Winter, The Donner Party. A special encore presentation tonight at 9, only on the Weather Channel.
Big rescues. Big weather. And the biggest gems we've ever uncovered. Don't miss the season premieres of our biggest hit shows.
We're back.
Starting with Prospectors at 9 and Highway Through Hell at 10. It's our biggest December ever. Starting next Sunday at 9 here on the Weather Channel.
Now, big experience, big change.
An unprecedented look.
It's a sad thing.
At an American emergency.
There was never a debate.
The winters are not as cold or as long.
Happening right here.
What's going on now on the planet?
Why are these people about to lose their homes?
That's how we survive in the Arctic.
Copy, thanks for the info, Brett.
What has lit more wildfires than ever before?
A lot of different weather patterns that I've noticed.
How are these homes sinking into the ground?
Right now, we're about 70 feet below the surface.
We go underground and above. Alaska, state of emergency. Here's Dave Malkoff.
Welcome to Alaska, America's majestic last frontier. But you could just as easily call it the climate change state. The evidence is all around us. To start our storytelling, we're going to get you on a bush plane and take you north of the Arctic Circle.
Welcome aboard
to a community on the brink.
This Cessna Grand Caravan has many safety features on board.
While our puddle jumper is relatively safe, that island down there called Kivalina no longer is. Winter storms are literally eating the village alive. Crashing ocean waves are eroding the island, once protected by huge chunks of sea ice.
It's like a buffer. Whoa! And now it's into the winters where we get rain in January. When it used to be minus 30, minus 40, minus 50.
The 400 people of Kivalina could soon become America's first climate change refugees.
Basically, that is what we would be. Refugees.
Meet Colleen Swan. In recent years, she's become kind of the voice of Kivalina.
Kivalina is on the northwest coast of Alaska, above the Arctic Circle.
This tiny village is home to about 400 native Alaskans.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me if everyone were related in this village.
The kids and their parents live off the land, very much like their ancestors did.
That's how we survive in the Arctic. You eat what survives up here.
But now, as tall waves can blow ice-cold water clear across the island, their lives are changing here. As politicians in Washington debate if climate change is real, here in Kivalina,
there was never a debate. You know, we just saw these changes happening and... It's a sad thing.
Colleen's dad has lived here for 80 years. His hunting grounds used to be out there on the solid blocks of ice during the winter.
Bearded seals, whales, muktuk, fish.
Muck duck,
belugas,
or beluga is hard to come by these days. The people in Kivalina believe changing climate and noise from a nearby mine has changed their migratory pattern.
Everything is gone. The ocean is empty like...
As recently as the 1970s and 80s, village elders remember the winter Arctic sea ice growing to 10 feet in thickness. But this past year,
It came down to 3 feet. Not thick enough to hunt on and not thick enough to protect the village either.
The climate change has caused so much problem.
But it's not just the village elders saying that, it's actually the federal government. A congressional audit and the Army Corps of Engineers have identified 4 Alaskan villages in dire need of immediate relocation. They specifically say climate change is the problem here and have started to spend millions to protect this place.
The Corps sent the big super sacks.
These rock boxes were Kivalina Protection version 1.0, but the storms were still too powerful.
And it was because the ice was not there. We used that until the Corps was able to come in with this rock that came from Nome.
For now, the big rock wall is holding, just barely. The plan is actually to move the entire ancient community.
Our Eskimo dancing, the spirituality is tied to our subsistence lifestyle.
Everybody needs to move off the island.
We have to keep our lifestyle alive.
Kivalina village is the only one without running water.
Lucy Adams is also in her 80s, but almost every day, when it's warm enough, her son takes her out on an hour-long motorboat ride to this stunning field of green, spongy tundra, where the wild berries grow.
Yeah, they're ripe now. They're ready to eat.
Lucy and her son pick blueberries and these things called salmon berries, while the kids go off and look for animals to hunt.
Taboo, female.
And remember, they're not picking berries or hunting for fun.